Hi. A few weeks ago, I made a community post about what an absolutely monstrous person Neil Gaiman is, not only for using his power and influence to prey on young women who look up to him, but for ending season 2 of Good Omens on one of the most gut-wrenching cliffhangers in recent memory, then promising his fans a happy ending over and over, only for the show to be cancelled because of his aforementioned terrible behavior. I was accused by some commenters of being pessimistic, of stirring up unnecessary discord. Paused doesn't mean cancelled, they said. As long as there's no announcement from Amazon Prime, there's still hope. People who know me know that I'm not a naturally cynical person. When it comes to things like this, I tend to keep my hopes up for as long as my Delulu brain deems it possible. So when I made this post, I was not assuming a negative outcome based on unsubstantial evidence. I was reacting to a very real piece of information I had received indicating that Good Omens was, in fact, almost certainly cancelled. So as some of you may know, my boyfriend is an actor working in London, and UK performing arts is a very small industry, which means he knows a lot. He's also been part of the Good Omens fandom much longer than I have. Terry Pratchett is his favorite author, and he's loved the book since long before the show came out. He's spent a lot of time in and around Bathgate, which is where much of Good Omens was filmed. Some time ago, Neil Gaiman said that there is hope for season 3 to happen as long as the Bathgate sets are still up, and word of mouth from the crew members is that they are being taken down. You might be inclined to wonder if the sets are being taken down for a different reason. Trust me, I did too, but unfortunately, naive optimism and having a boyfriend who knows a lot about the inner workings of the industry are pretty incompatible. The budget isn't big enough for if the sets were simply being rebuilt or relocated. I have also heard that several people's contracts have been terminated, and according to those who were present at the recording of Michael Sheen's recent podcast, he apparently also said that Good Omens 3 is not happening, which for me was pretty much the final nail in the coffin. Now, with all of that said, even with all of this information, some of you may still be in denial. You may be thinking, I don't care, I'm still not going to believe the show is canceled until I hear an official announcement from Amazon Prime, and believe me, I get why you may be a bit reluctant to accept that you're hearing about the cancellation of your favorite show from a 20-year-old YouTuber instead of the actual production. But the main reason I'm making this video, other than, I guess, catharsis for myself, is that the awful, cruel reality of the situation is that an official announcement is very possibly not coming. At least not anytime soon. Amazon Prime, in spite of greenlighting the show we all love dearly, is still a horrible, evil corporation that knows how many people will cancel their subscriptions if they find out Good Omens is in fact canceled. And they are intent on squeezing every last dime out of our desperate hope that in spite of everything, we'll still somehow get that cottage in the South Downs. We have effectively been hung out to dry, left to put 2 and 2 together when January comes and David and Michael still haven't dyed their hair. And if you're thinking, they can't do that, they very much can. It's what happened with season 2 of Around the World in 80 Days. I have no idea how much of Neil Gaiman's alleged stepping back from Good Omens was under pressure or of his own accord, but it seems that a very clear deplatforming is taking place. He hasn't been active on Tumblr in months, all of his upcoming convention appearances have been cancelled, and even The Guardian's review of the new play Giant, which deals with Roald Dahl's anti-Semitism, references the controversy. I quote, "It's your decision if you want to burn your Neil Gaiman books or not." The castle is clearly crumbling, and this is objectively and morally a good thing. I had simply hoped that we wouldn't have to go down with him. Like, one of the only times a powerful person gets rightfully held accountable, and it has to be the person who made my favorite thing. It's immature, I know, but it's a thought I'm sure we've all had at least once. If Good Omens is getting canceled, it's because Amazon has decided it looks worse for the company to keep the show than to get rid of it. Good Omens has, in an instant, gone from a niche but pretty universally beloved beacon of hope for queer nerds to part of the problem. The reality is that even if the show had continued as planned, with or without Neil, the fandom could never go back to the way things were before July 3rd. We would still be split between those who believe the very clear pattern of allegations that have been presented and those who still choose to defend Neil. We would be mired in moral debate about whether or not it's still okay to watch the show or create content about it online, and for many of us, any new material would feel tainted. I've mostly been able to put my feelings about Neil aside when watching the show, thanks to David and Michael's performances and Terry's writing also being huge parts of why I love it so much. But even I can't escape the gnawing voice in my head that the iconic wall slam scene was probably written by a rapist. It is a possibility, since Neil said that he would find a way to finish the story even if season 3 was not renewed, that Neil will publish the rest of it as a novel, in which case I probably won't be able to stop myself from reading at least a leaked version. But whereas watching the show would have been to me supporting not Neil, but everyone else involved in the project, reading the hypothetical book would be supporting literally just Neil. Safe place. That's how so many people have described the Good Omens fandom. So many fans of this series have previously been part of fandoms like Sherlock, Supernatural, or Harry Potter, franchises brought down by queerbaiting or unsatisfying endings, or creators being horrible people. For a lot of these people, Good Omens was healing their inner child. It was the fandom where, rather than constantly making fun of them, the creators listened to the fans and made the central queer relationship canon, where the lead actors were compassionate and dedicated allies, where space was made not only for different queer identities, but for neurodivergent people, for disabled people, for older people, and we could all gush over each other's beautiful fan art and devastating fics and insightful analyses while embracing what made us different. Where we were all passionate about creating a world that is kinder and more accepting, a world Good Omens inspired us to create. And I think that's part of the reason why the truth about Neil feels like such an absolute betrayal. This perception of ourselves as a kind fandom, a safe fandom, even to some extent a morally righteous one. The fandom that was finally going to get it right has been ripped out from beneath us. How I ache for the days when RPF was the worst thing we had to worry about. This is really the first time something like this has happened to me while I am actively involved in a fandom space. By the time J.K. Rowling became the poster child for TERFdom, I had enough distance between myself and Harry Potter that her behavior was frightening and disappointing, but not soul-crushing. The allegations about Joss Whedon came out while I was watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer for the first time, and those hurt, but it wasn't a series that I'd been attached to for a significant part of my life. Both of these series are complete works. There may be new content coming out related to them that you can choose whether or not to engage with, but the main story is finished. The fact of the matter is that because of Neil's behavior, his fans have been robbed of the happy ending they were promised over and over and over again because a disappointing, privileged, evil man chose to use his influence to prey on his fans. The ending of season 2 is the ending of the show. Good Omens has gone from a comedy to a tragedy. I feel like such a selfish, spoiled, immature little brat when I describe my feelings about Good Omens cancellation as grief. Like, way to tell people I've never actually had to go through anything difficult, that I don't have any real problems. But the fact of the matter is that no matter how hard you try to convince yourself that your attachments to fictional characters aren't the same as your attachments to real people, your brain still thinks they are. Knowing I won't get to see Crowley and Aziraphale past the ending of season 2, at least on screen, feels like never being able to see 2 of my best friends again. And the fact that I can so clearly visualize what could have been only makes it worse. Because the thing about grief is that first you mourn the thing as a whole, and then you have to mourn the 1,000 little parts that made up that thing. All of the line reads, the costumes, the character details, the touching moments that simply won't get to be. We won't get to see Crowley's fall. We won't ever get that third 1941 flashback so many of us theorized about. Aziraphale won't get to triumphantly dismantle heaven from the inside. I even mourn the small, stupid things, like the possible return of Crowley's long hair, or the fact that Michael is never going to get a BAFTA nomination for playing Aziraphale. And worst of all, the touching reunion we've all hoped for since July of last year will never happen. One of my favorite love stories in all of fiction will forever remain unfinished, and my imagination is its final resting place. Good Omens has given me so much. It has given me some of the most fulfilling creative projects of my life, Weird and Wonderful Legacy and Crowley's Lament in particular. It helped me realize I was neurodivergent and queer. It has helped me meet some of my best friends, not to mention my boyfriend. It has been a source of comfort for me in some of the loneliest times of my life. And I know that in the end, I'll be okay. I have a good support system. I have other interests. This is never going to stop sucking, but I'm not actively concerned for myself. But I know that there are people out there who genuinely feel like Good Omens is the only thing getting them through the day. People who are in bad living situations, or are still in the closet, or have debilitating mental or physical health conditions, or maybe just find it difficult to make friends. For a lot of people, this show is all they have. For better or worse, it's the kind of show people with hard lives tend to connect with very deeply. And for those people, I am so sorry. Some days I feel like I'm coping pretty well. Other days I don't feel like I'm coping at all. I let myself be properly devastated for a day, and ever since I've just tried to think about it as little as possible. It hasn't been too hard because I've been so busy, but every once in a while I'll make the mistake of checking Tumblr late at night and I'll see something about a petition to save the show, or screenshotted Facebook comments about the sets getting taken down, and just get utterly miserable. Going on Tumblr is kind of depressing in general right now. Like, sometimes I check the tag and I scroll and it all blurs together and I think, what's the point anymore? What am I even still doing here? Every once in a while I get delusional urges to take on some copium project that I think will fill the hole, like writing another song or making a podfic, because then at least this will all have a purpose, and if I make a podfic I can just pretend that's season 3 and I must be useful, I must make things, but then I realize that it'll take up way too much of my time and I should focus on my career instead of being a fucking child. So naturally, instead, I've just been spending way too much time on character AI, which is how I deal with basically anything difficult. I haven't really figured out if season 3 Fix will help, or if they'll just make everything worse. I was planning on doing a live performance of Crowley's Lament at my composition club's Halloween concert and recording it for YouTube, and like, I still want to do it, but I'm scared to. Like, I don't know if the cancellation is going to make my performance more emotionally potent, or if the fire will just be gone. It's so bleak, but like, I think about this fandom dying out. Like, how am I gonna, in good conscience, like, recommend this show to new people, knowing that A, Neil did all of the things he did, and B, like, it ends the way it ends? Like, I can't tell people to watch Good Omens. I'm just, A, giving an abuser money, and B, signing them up for agony. And if other people are feeling the same way I am, that eventually the fandom's just gonna keep getting smaller and smaller until there's nothing left, and maybe, considering everything that's happened, on some level that's a good thing. But right now it's just fucking heartbreaking. I'm hoping that David and Michael are eventually able to speak openly about this situation now that their contracts are probably being terminated, and that can hopefully provide the fandom with a bit of closure. I will be a bit personally saddened if they're no longer able to look as fondly upon Crowley and Aziraphale now that the show has been cancelled under such awful circumstances. Obviously, there's no shortage of people on Tumblr who, when the allegations came out, decided Good Omens was never a great show to begin with. But I like to think they'll always have a place in their heart for the series that brought them together and brought so much joy to their queer fans, even if that joy is a bit tarnished now. I really wish that I could end this video on a more hopeful note. This situation is just so messed up, and I wanted to make this video so we can all hopefully start processing and healing from this together. I personally am coping by watching Our Flag Means Death, which unfortunately also got cancelled after its second season, but at least it's on a much happier note than Good Omens. I will almost definitely be making at least a little bit of Good Omens content in the future, though I'll need to get to a point where I can do it without dying inside. That's about it. This video made me really sad. I need to edit it and then do something that makes me happy, which I hope you will also do. I love you guys. Thanks for all of your support. Bye.